Okay, the future, electric cars. Now, we've got about 30 minutes to go through this and talk about hydrogen. So I've taken some slides out of this, and I know some of you will have seen this already. I'll try to keep it interesting by keeping it moving and try to go on to a few subjects that I don't generally talk about on the way through. Starting by why I want an electric car, I think most people will have recognized that they use a lot of existing petrol cars use an awful lot of petrol and diesel. Think of all of the petrol and diesel you've pumped into your car every year, and think about that all going into the sky and tripling in quantity, and it steals a whole pile of oxygen from the sky and adds to the CO2. So 4 to 5 tons of it every year for the average car. Of course, cars, when they're made, they end up using CO2. For going for an electric car, you're still adding some footprint if you're buying a new car, but you're buying a new car anyway. Yes, sorry?
Are you still on the first slide, or are you moving?
No, I'm moving through. I've got that same problem. That's what happened last time. Would I be better on this screen, and I'll just go through the slides on this? The trouble is the animations do not work.
Tom, shut down slides, share, and start up again.
Stop share. I should go into start the presentation first, should I?
Yep.
And then share it. Is that what I should do? I got it working the second time when I tried this. Well, are you seeing this animation? What's happening here?
Yeah, we just got the heading at the moment. Just click on just to try it out. Click a few forward and click a few back.
I have, and they're not showing clearly. Yeah.
At the moment, we've just got why I wanted an electric car, and what happens if you click forward?
Yeah. No.
Oh, here we go. You got it. You got it. You got it. You got another.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
back.
this is back on the screen. I don't know why that's not working. When I go to play the presentation, it shows you while I start to play, and then it stops showing you anything further, it seems. Try it one more time. You've got what's the difference?
Yes.
And if I click on this, do you see something changing?
No.
No. Okay. Well, we'll stay with this version. I'll try to get that as big as possible. Moving things around here. And I think I can probably get rid of that over there. Okay. So what's the difference between an electric car and a regular one? As you can see, and maybe you can see my pointer now, a regular car takes in air and hydrocarbon fuel, burns it, and you end up with a lot of CO2 and a lot of water generated because you've got hydrocarbons being burned. And it uses a gearbox and other stuff to drive the wheels. Now, the difference is with a straight electric car over on the right-hand side here, you've basically got no output in terms of gaseous outputs. You've only got electricity going into a battery which drives an electric motor, which is more directly linked to the wheels. And yeah, a simpler process. The big issue is you have to have a big battery to get you the distance you need to go. The hybrids, which are somewhere in between, are a bit of a mixture. The big plus of having an electric car or a hybrid is that having an electric motor connected to your wheels, you're able to use that electric motor as a generator and use it as braking system. And so you're able to collect the energy that you would otherwise lose when you brake, when you slow down, when you go down a hill, or when you're pulling up somewhere. So that's where there's the hybrid cars use a system of motors and battery to be able to store the energy when you're braking and reuse it when you take off again, while they still rely on an engine to provide all of the original energy that you're using. It's just a more efficient way of doing it. And the way that different cars are produced, the Toyota Prius, which is what I've got a diagram of here, effectively doesn't need a starter motor or a alternator, because the electric motors take their place, and it doesn't need a clutch or a gearbox because the gearing system allows for the engine to be connected to the wheels as well as the batteries, as well as the motors. Very clever design. Other electric hybrid cars use a different approach where you basically have an electric motor doing all of the driving, and an engine is acting just as a generator to recharge the battery. It's not quite as efficient. That's why Prius decided to do this particular approach. So there are different types of hybrids. And then there's another type of hybrid, which is called a plug-in hybrid, where you are actually able, you have a bigger battery and you're able to plug that in and charge it up from your home or wherever. And that will give you enough power to drive the vehicle for some kilometers, maybe 50 or whatever kilometers, before it runs out of electricity from that battery, and then the petrol motor comes in and keeps you going. So that's a plug-in hybrid option. So there are different types of cars that are available. And of course, hydrogen, we can just briefly say about hydrogen cars here. Hydrogen are effectively an electric car. Instead of having an engine to take you a little further, though, for a plug-in hybrid, you have basically a store of hydrogen in place of hydrocarbon fuel, and you have a hydrogen cell, a fuel cell, which converts that more directly, just pulling in air, pulling in hydrogen, creating water only, and putting power in to the battery, which then powers the car. So they're very much the same thing. A hydrogen car is just one with a slightly smaller battery that enables you to, and with a fuel cell and hydrogen store, which acts as a storage of energy. It's a cleaner form of hydro fuel, I guess. It's not hydrocarbon anymore. The advantage of a hydrogen car is that it can be refueled a little quicker. Okay, whoa, what happened there? I just jumped a whole pile of slides. So what's the difference? In physical reality, you've got this motor in an existing, this has been pulled out of this van. That's the motor system that's been so well developed over 100 years or so, perfected the system of taking energy from little explosions and converting them into mechanical energy. But there are lots of peripheral bits there. It's a huge, massive technology, which is replaced by this small item here with an electric motor. The other components, the exhaust and fuel tank, of course, are no longer needed. Instead, you need batteries. So this is what replaces all of this in this electric vehicle. It does need to have some controllers and chargers for the batteries, their peripherals, but overall you need less, not more, in an electric vehicle. Energy use, I won't go into a lot of detail here, but the best we've ever been able to produce energy efficiency-wise from a petrol or diesel vehicle is somewhere around 20%, because a lot of heat is generated in the process, and you also lose energy as you brake. And the cost of fuel for a very efficient car, most cars use 12 litres per 100 kilometres. If we take a really efficient one, 6, the cost per 100 kilometres at $1.30 per per litre for fuel is around $7.80. You compare that with a pure electric car, depending on the cost of your electricity, it can be as little as just $1.50 for the same 100 kilometres. And even paying full price for electricity, it's still somewhat cheaper than the best you can do with a petrol or diesel car price-wise. So you save a lot of money in the current scheme of things by having electric vehicle. And also, it's a much more efficient way of moving energy around. It's not perfectly efficient, it's about 60% efficient in terms of by the time you've moved the electricity into the battery and taken it out and transferred the energy to the wheels. But it's 3 times better than what we can do with petrol or diesel. And the other options in between are of various levels between that. Filling up. Now everybody worries about the plugs. Now I can tell you there are different plugs on different cars. Sorry, somebody cut in there.
I think we're stuck on the same slide.
What slide are you looking at? Filling up?
What's the difference? Still?
You're still back at what's the difference? Oh dear. Is it my internet is just that poor that it's taking a while to download?
Yep.
I'm going to stop sharing and come back and try a different option altogether.
Try getting it into view mode and then sharing, rather than sharing in the edit mode and then changing to view mode.
I'm in view mode, and now I can't get to back to the Zoom system. There's no menu showing for me to do anything with Zoom when I'm actually in view mode. I have to escape the presentation.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know why it worked on that second occasion earlier. See, I've been on the Zoom for a lot, but I've never actually given presentations on it before. So excuse the messiness here. Maybe if I kill Keynote and start all over again, it may be something to do with that.
RF is suggesting you have to select the proper screen, number 1. Otherwise it looks onto only one window. I don't know if that helps.
Okay. Try one more time here. Okay, so I'll try playing it at that. You can see what's the difference?
Yes.
Hey.
Can you see the animation?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. We'll zip through those ones.
Yahoo.
And this is where I was up to. So, yeah, filling, it does involve different plugs. Different cars have different plugs only through the history of the way they put them together. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to know that all these plugs are using the same cables, the same electricity flows through those cables, and the same protocol is used in the wires. So it's just the plug on the end of the wire which differs, and you can get converters, just like double adapter type things, that plug in between them. And so there's no real problem with compatibility other than, yes, things are moving. And the standard is now that one at the bottom right there, which is basically a Type 2 CCS SAE combo, as you can see. And that allows for AC or DC charging. And you can, you can charge at home or fast chargers using that particular plug system. And people worry about how fast you might be able to plug your car in and charge it. Well, every car that I've seen comes with a charger wire that enables you to connect up at home from a standard 10-amp power point. And yeah, it just takes a little while. The car that we've got at the moment is one with a very long range, 64 kilowatt hours of power stored in the battery. It takes 30 hours on a standard power point to charge it from 0 to full. But of course, we very rarely have it 0. We usually come in after just 100 kilometers or 2 at most, and we'll plug it in and it'll charge within just a few hours. Certainly overnight is not a problem. You can have a 15-amp power point, which gives you 50% more. You can put in a 30-amp power point, even a 30-amp 3-phase, which is 9 times the amount of power that you can get from a standard power point. If you've got 3-phase on at home, and if you've got a car that's capable of charging 3-phase at that. Not all electric cars are capable of doing that, but most of them are able to charge 1-phase 30-amp or 3-phase 10-amp, which gives you 7.2 kilowatts, which is a fairly quick way to do it. And certainly we can charge within 10 hours our car overnight from 0 to full. So that option is available at home. And then you can get into what's in the shopping centres and being put out there as lower cost chargers. They're using this 30-amp by 3-phase, giving you up to 22 kilowatts. One of the cars that we've owned has had that capability, and so you can charge fairly quickly with that, just from AC power directly from the grid, without having to convert it outside the car. The car has its own charger to do that. So all of these AC charging options that I've spoken of there are all using the charger built in your car. It depends on which car you're using. The rapid charge option, a DC option, is then the next stage. That's where the charger's outside the car. You've got a charger taking the grid power, converting it into DC, which is what your battery needs, of course, and being able to transfer it a lot quicker. There are superchargers now available up to 350 kilowatts being installed in Australia. And if you have a car capable of that, and not many do, to be honest, but if you have a car capable of that, you can charge within just a few minutes for most of your needs. So it's happening. But it is limited to the capabilities of the car. Growth in sales of electric cars around the world is growing enormously, 60% per year up to last year, and it's probably growing even faster at this point. At the moment, though, only around 3% of cars in the world, or 3% of new cars, are in fact electric. There's still a long way to go. When there's almost 100 million cars produced every year in the world, it's a big number to replace. That's just new cars. But they're growing very rapidly. As you can see, China is the biggest growth area in this comparison between 2017 and 2018. Europe and USA are following closely behind, but China is massive, and like they're not exporting a great many of these into Australia. I don't know whether they're exporting a lot to other countries. They're using them in China, the vast majority, which is interesting. What's been available in Australia? The Nissan Leaf has been a long-term, fairly popular, well, not that popular in Australia, but a fairly popular one worldwide, the most popular, in fact, worldwide. It's sold quite a few in Australia, but not nearly the numbers they would like to have had. The Outlander plug-in hybrid is another option that's been reasonably popular, but still limited numbers. It's another option that's been around a few years. And the Tesla Model S has been around too. These cars, the Leaf hasn't been overly expensive. The Outlander was a bit more expensive. The Model S is very much more expensive than the average car. Unfortunately, it's been around 150,000 or more, but nevertheless, there've been quite a few sold of those. But if you look at the overall numbers up to 2017 at least, the numbers of cars being sold in Australia has been fairly limited compared to I forget the figure, we've got 20 million cars in Australia, so probably about 1 million cars a year are sold. Yep, about 1 million cars. This is a fairly small proportion of that, 0.2% of the market. But it's growing very quickly. This last year, the Tesla Model 3 finally arrived in Australia after being promised some nearly 4 years ago. And they managed to get the numbers into Australia and sold an estimated 3,300 of them. And you can see what that's done to the market. All the others have been left in their wake. So it's growing very quickly, and sales last year tripled electric cars. That's gone from 0.2% to 0.6%. We've still got a way to go to catch the rest of the world, but it's a start. And we now have a reasonable number, 23 different models of electric or plug-in hybrid cars available. A number of those are available this year, so they may not be available till later in the year. The prices range, well, they start from around $50,000. I won't guarantee all these prices are perfectly correct, but it gives you an order of magnitude of their price anyway. And they are getting cheaper as time goes by. Their range is also improving somewhat. There are a number of cars in about the 300, 400, even 500 kilometer range that are available now, and those are very good ranges, really. Our car has a range of 450 kilometers, and we live just down the coast from Sydney a little, but we can drive all the way to Canberra and back with no trouble on one charge. So on one charge, that's brilliant. There are opportunities of charging along the way if we need to. The number of models being available, okay, I'm going to need to roll through this much more quickly. There's about 5 times more models available in the world than there are in Australia, probably a lot more than that. And the number of models that are coming out are growing enormously. So, and electric cars, I went past that one too quick. While electric cars are growing, they tripled in last year, the regular cars have actually dropped in sales by 17% over the last 2 years. So, yeah, it looks like people are holding out until electric cars get a little cheaper. That would be my assessment. People worry about charging places. Well, Tesla have managed to put in this many charging ports all across this part of Australia. The red ones are the superchargers, the ones that can charge your car in half an hour or so. The grey ones are slower AC chargers. NRMA is putting chargers across the state. There's 40 in place. I think all of those now marked, including the shovel ones, are all now in and working. We've used them ourselves. There's a ChargeFox organisation putting in, they had a contract from the federal government to put in this network of very fast chargers. And the plug-in share app will show you a whole pile of charging points all around Australia, even across the middle, which are generally just power points on people's walls that you can plug in. People are happy for you to plug in. Some of them in the motels and so forth may charge you a little bit, but hey, it's still pretty good price against petrol. And that's just a bit of local stuff. You can drive around the world. This man's driven all the way from Holland to the centre of Australia on an electric car. It can be done. Lots of things are happening. I won't go into the details because we won't have the time. But there's some interesting points there. One thing that blew me away was that more than half of China's buses are now electric. They're producing them at a massive rate. They can replace London's bus fleet in 5 weeks. So it's happening. And Australia's in there. We've got 2 young fellows from Brisbane who've got a company making the fastest charging stations fastest ones in the world, and they're selling them really well. They're what's being installed around Australia. I've used a number of their charging places. The big car manufacturers are now getting into the run. Tesla is a magic story. They've made electric cars sexy, literally. They've got the Model S, the Model E, which is 3 the other way anyway, a Model X and a Model Y, and a truck to boot on the drawing board. At least it's coming soon. There are already electric trucks from other manufacturers, so that's happening. The latest from Tesla is an incredible machine called the Cybertruck, which is a bit like a truck. It's a lot bigger than it looks there. Looks amazingly strange. Seat 6, built of stainless steel, which is almost bulletproof. Well, it is bulletproof. Throw a sledgehammer into the door, you don't see it. It's a utility as well. 6-foot tray you can sleep in. And it still outperforms most sports cars. Can go from 0 to 100 k's in 3 seconds or thereabouts. Just an amazing. But this is on the drawing board. You can put your orders in now, due in the next couple of years. And of course, trucks like that are not the only sort of heavy-duty vehicle. There are options. This is a company in Melbourne making or importing shells of trucks and putting in the electrics to make them electric vehicles. They're selling electric garbage trucks to New Zealand, of all places. And yeah, great success story. So this is a positive field. There are lots of opportunities for Australian companies to get involved, and they are doing so. Very successful young lady in Sydney is making electric motorbikes, for instance. Batteries are getting more efficient and better density and cheaper. So while the battery prices are coming down per kilowatt hour, the price of electric cars is also dropping, to the point that they say by 2025 they will be on par with the equivalent petrol diesel vehicle. And even before that, though, they're cost effective because the cost of maintenance is way less and the cost of fuel is way less. And so with just a few years of ownership, they will pay for themselves even now. We've driven electric cars. Our first was a Prius. It was okay, only just a hybrid, but we converted it to a plug-in. This is a BMW we went overseas for an extended period. Drove it all around the UK and a bit of Europe. This one had a range extender, so it's a bit like a plug-in hybrid. We hardly used the range extender, and we averaged 0.15 litres per 100 kilometres, which is like about 3,000 miles per gallon. And we did all around there. This is Holden Volt, what we bought second hand. It's a plug-in hybrid, in effect. It runs very well. It's a 5-6 year old car now. Still has the full range on the battery. I doubt the battery will get worn out anytime soon. It's still on warranty and doing very well. And we made a decision last year that we would go for the Model 3 Tesla or the Kona. And my heart's still with the Tesla, but we ended up buying the Kona because it was a better shape, but it's better for our purposes. And we've driven it all the way up to Brisbane via the charging stations and enjoyed a holiday with our kayak that we towed all the way there. Saw some of the damage, but lots of good stuff at the Great Barrier Reef. And our holiday weekends and use of a car has not slowed us one iota having an electric car. What's it like to drive an EV? It's like an automatic. Now, I'm going a bit over time here, so I'm the speaker. I'm also the MC. I should tell you that I probably won't be as harsh on me as I might be on another speaker. So you'll have to be harsh on me if you want me to stop. I'm going to go through this last bit and get into the hydrogen vehicles. I'll try to finish at about 5:10, if that's okay with everyone.
You've got 3 questions waiting, Tom.
3 questions. So I'll leave a bit of time for them too, if I can. So what's it like? It's like driving an automatic. There's no gears to change, even for reverse. It's just a push button for most. The Volt is a bit different. It has a big clunky T-bar like the Americans like to have, but it's just a button in effect. And you can change from forward to reverse even before you've stopped. It's a very smooth process. You do have to have your foot on the brake a little. And the important difference is that you've got 100% torque at 0 speed, maximum torque at 0 speed on an electric car. So very responsive when you touch the pedal. Very smooth acceleration, no gear changing or anything to engage or disengage. And of course, because you've got your motors, your electric motors connected directly to the wheels, you can use them to regenerate electricity to brake. And they've linked that to the accelerator. And in the basic mode, you can have the accelerator feel like a normal car, where you get a little bit of braking when you take your foot off it, or you can put the maximum regen on some cars from the accelerator. So you can actually drive and brake and stop completely just by taking your foot off the accelerator. So you have to become a little bit more sensitive to taking your foot off the accelerator quickly if you're doing that. Most people like to drive it in a mode not dissimilar to the normal automatic car, though, so you still have to use the brake pedal. And of course, the brake pedal is essential that you use it if you have an emergency stop, because the physical brakes are important too. And it's interesting that you get different modes that you can plug. You have 3 different modes on the car, the latest car we've got: Eco, Regular and Sports. It doesn't just change the sensitivity of the accelerator, which it does. Obviously, in sports mode, you just touch the accelerator and zoom, off you go. In eco mode, you have to push the accelerator to the floor to get the same effect. But you can get the same effect. It just means it feels different. They made it feel and perform a little differently, I suppose. The other interesting point is that they changed the dash, so it looks like a sports car when you put it in sports mode. It has a tacho-looking dial instead of having an eco green. Test your efficiency type dashboard. Pros and cons. Recharging at home. Again, I'm jumping ahead. Recharging at home is a real pro for us. Anybody who has their own garage or their own place to park a car, it's a real positive to be able to charge at home. If you don't own a garage and live in a flat with no parking area, then it would be a bit of a problem. But there are ways and means, and councils are starting to put in charging areas for such people in other countries. It hasn't happened yet here, but I think that will come. Lower cost energy, yes, it's certainly cheaper to run a car on electric, but there is a shorter range, though it's improving. Less cost to maintain by far, but it is more expensive up front. Power universally available. Now, if you ran out of petrol in the middle of the bush, yeah, you'd have to walk to the next service station and get a tank, or you'd call the NRMA, I suppose. But you only have to find a house, any house in Australia, and you can plug in and charge, assuming you can talk the owner into allowing you. But every house in Australia has a power point. But there are plenty of fast charge stations happening around Australia now. More efficient. no poisonous gases. Who'd think that you could drive a vehicle that if you spent a few hours in the same room as it while running, you would actually be committing suicide? Who would think you would do such a thing? I couldn't sell a petrol car these days if it were a new technology. It can avoid all CO2 emissions. We just need our factories that are producing them to be sustainably sourced, to have sustainable energy, and we're there. And hey, no noise, beautifully silent stealth. Of course, that can be a disadvantage to pedestrians who are on the road in front of you, and they are putting devices on the cars. Ours has a device making a slight noise just so people know we're there. And hey, I have to say, they're more fun to drive. This car in the picture, the BMW i3, it looks like an SUV there, but it drives like a Ferrari. That's the most performing car for a little car I've ever driven. Not quite as good as the Tesla Model S for rocket power, but it's pretty good. And okay, over to hydrogen cars. Hydrogen is an interesting technology. As I say, it's basically an electric car with some hydrogen fuel as a replacement for part of the battery. These two cars are supposedly available in Australia, but there are only a few charging hydrogen charge-up stations. There's one that's been put in Canberra for a small fleet that the Canberra government have purchased, and I believe they were intending to put some refill stations in Sydney and Melbourne, but there wouldn't be any in between, I wouldn't think, other than the one in Canberra. They're not that much more expensive. They're no more expensive than electric cars for the same range. The difficulty is just the recharge options, refilling options at this stage. There are advantages in green hydrogen. Now, there's a whole raft of things I could tell you about hydrogen, but we've run out of time now, I'm sorry. But this is a technology that can replace gas that we use for energy storage. If we have an excess of renewable energy, we can store that energy by converting that energy by electrolyzing hydrogen and oxygen, collecting the hydrogen. You can use the oxygen for other purposes. I know the Steelworks, for instance, uses a lot of pure oxygen in their BOS plant, for instance. So the oxygen is useful too. The hydrogen can be stored then and burned later. And using a fuel cell, it's not a direct burning process, almost just adding air to the hydrogen creates electricity in the cell. Almost a magic process. There are some losses in the scheme, but it's quite an effective storage mechanism. And of course, you can also transport the hydrogen fuel from one location to another. So green hydrogen is, as opposed to brown or black hydrogen, if you want to give them a name, it's just that green hydrogen comes from renewable energies. It is possible to make hydrogen from coal or from oil, but you end up having to burn the carbon off or use the carbon in some other way. So not a very perfect solution, and hey, better to leave that fossil fuel in the ground. So green hydrogen is the way we should go for supplying electric cars, hydrogen cars. And of course, it's a good way of storing energy for reuse later. There are some slightly higher losses than batteries in this form of storage, but it is much cheaper to store. Harder to work that with than methane. It's a much smaller molecule, and so it escapes more easily, harder to compress and put into a small space, uses a lot of energy to do that. So there are some disadvantages, but there is the option of converting hydrogen into ammonia, which makes it not so volatile, easier to store. It's stored as a liquid and could use existing tankers, for instance, to ship around the world. So there is this wonderful as we mentioned earlier today, Ross Garnaut's book, Superpower, says that Australia could be an energy superpower if we put in heaps and heaps, like 200, 300% of renewable energy sources, wind and solar. We could then store the excess power we generate as hydrogen and sell it overseas, become a supplier of energy to the world in that way. We have lots of renewable energy sources. So I think I've gone well and truly long enough. I do have recommendations for policymakers that the Climate Council has suggested. I can leave that up, but we'll go to questions.
Great. Okay. Question number 1. Does the rapid charge wear out the battery faster than slow charge?
Yes, it does. Batteries obviously are stressed more if you rapid charge them. Most electric cars have cooling systems in them to keep them cool, because that's the important thing. When you rapid charge, and they tend to get a little bit warmer, and the charger itself gets warm. Yes, the answer is it is better to charge more slowly. Of course, most of our power is taken from home. You will be only slowly charging if you're at home generally, which is a good thing. If you go for long trips, then yes, a bit more stress on the battery. The other thing is the amount of charge you put in the car also stresses it. As you get closer to 100%, it's harder to push more electrons into the battery, and it stresses the battery a little bit more than if you don't fill it completely full. So unless you're using the full range every day, it's best to charge to, just say, 80% and leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2. Is there any brand advancing using batteries that are less polluting to recycle? This is Nick, and he has heard recycled aluminium batteries to store wind and solar power plant energy. Oh, okay. Does this apply to cars as well?
Okay, I haven't researched this in great depth, but my understanding is most of the batteries we're getting are of the same, much the same chemistry at this point. But there are new forms of batteries coming through. My philosophy is this: I mean, all of the lithium and other rare metals that are going into these batteries is still in the battery when it's dead, and it's fairly well contained within. It's a fairly high density there, so it makes sense that it's easier to mine it from within a battery than to mine it out of the ground. We haven't lost that chemistry and can reuse it. At this point, though, we're not recycling those batteries in great numbers in any way other than reusing them. When a battery gets older, it tends to lose its effectiveness, so its energy density reduces. You don't get as much stored in the same weight. But that can be fine for using home batteries, for instance, where you don't need to worry about the weight or size of the battery quite so much. And so you find a lot of, or where there are batteries being taken out of cars or replaced in cars, they are reusing the batteries. There's a good market for them.
And there is a market for recycling, or can you recycle them?
Well, if this is an indication, there was a Toyota Prius that we had the batteries replaced in a couple of years back, and Toyota wanted the batteries and gave us a discount by giving them the batteries back.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to keep them as spares, and they said no. Part of the deal and part of the price is for them to have the batteries because they reuse them.
Great.
They have a market for them.
One question from Nigel. When there's a lot of EVs on the Australian roads, is there a prospect of EV fuel price hikes like happened in Norway?
Well, yes, I've heard about what's happened in Norway. I haven't seen it happen elsewhere. Mostly the charging stations are subsidised. The NRMA are giving you power for free, for instance, across New South Wales. That won't last forever, but the NRMA are saying that it'll stay free for members, certainly for the next few years, and they will start to charge. The system they're putting in Queensland, which is sponsored at the moment by the Queensland government, is being put in place by a private company, and the mechanism is there for them to start charging, but they're still giving it away for free. The mechanism and the pricing scheme that they're intending to put in place is something like about 45 cents a kilowatt hour for your power. There are different schemes which are where you pay by time instead of by the amount of energy you're using. I haven't seen the enormously expensive ones. The most expensive I've seen is in France, but it's still on par with the price of petrol. So, and hey, it's only when you go for long trips that you need to pay for this power from a fast charger. At home, you're going to get the cheapest possible power. That's where 99% of your energy will probably come from.
Brilliant. There was a comment, this is from Philip, saying, I believe the Tesla 3 is now the most popular worldwide. And then his comment was that he thinks it's total cost of ownership that counts when you're comparing price. I don't know if you want to comment on that. And then from Dennis, if all vehicles are electric vehicles, will congestion still be a problem? Fix that one, Tom.
Will congestion still be a problem? I don't think we're going to remove the amount of cars we've got on the road somehow. I used to ride my push bike more than I do now. Now that I've got the electric car, I feel less guilty taking the car places. It's a worry. But yes, the total cost of ownership thing. The Kona that we bought was something like $23,000 more than the petrol version. It was exactly the same car. It hurts when you pay that much more for the batteries. And I've worked it out, if we have a 15-year lifespan with that car, we hope to, it will just about pay for itself in that time with the savings that we get from reduced maintenance costs and reduced fuel costs. We power our car just from the electricity off our roof, in effect. What we're getting from the roof, we're selling into the grid. We're actually getting paid more for what we sell to the grid than what we pay for our electricity that we use overnight. So when we charge overnight, we might be doing it on the off-peak period between 10 and 7 in the morning, when very few other people are using power. It's balancing out the grid nicely. We're actually paying for our electricity from what we're getting off the roof. And so, we're effectively carbon neutral on our fuel.
That's what these last couple of people, I'll round it off here, but Philip's saying when we have autonomous vehicles, then the number of vehicles will be less. And I know, because I take an electric bus around Burwood sometimes. You order it on your app and it turns up and takes you with a couple of other people just in a certain radius. But surely, that's that many fewer people. And one last comment. So, if these cars are nice and clean, the air will be better, and then we can ride our bikes more. Yay. Thank you very much, Tom. Can I thank you, since you have and you're getting lots of positive comments here, and here's a vote of thanks to you for your talk.
Thank you very much.